Sheva here again at the Elite FTS compound. This is the second video that we're going to be doing on foot mechanics and foot drills. So what I'm going to be going over here is just a couple of exercises that you can do to start getting a better feel for your feet while you're lifting and improve the ability of them to ground into the floor and grip the floor properly, okay? So the first thing that we need to be able to do that properly is actually just to be able to move our toes correctly, which a lot of people can't do. Okay, so we're going to start with some real basic things that you can practice to start getting a feeling for your toes moving again. And then we're going to look at just things that are a little bit more complicated to help you feel about your balance point and actually shifting your balance point around whilst gripping the floor, so you can feel what it's like to maybe be unbalanced and then rebalanced over that center of mass that we talked about in the first video. So we've got Naomi here once again, being our glamorous assistant. If you just stand on the hard floor for us, okay? So the first thing that we're going to have her do here, and again, she's in barefoot on purpose because this is what we want to do so we can get a better feeling against the ground. Very first thing that we want her to be able to do is literally just be able to lift all her toes up off the floor at the same time. Now, if some people have been wearing like really wide or narrow, trainers for a long time, and the little toes really pressed in, then sometimes they won't even be able to move their little toe at all. So this would actually be the first thing you do to make sure you can do that. And if you can't, you don't progress past this point yet. Okay, so we're just going to scope down here. Naomi is literally just going to stand there and she's going to raise all her toes up off the floor. And then when she goes down, you basically want to imagine that you've basically got claws on the end of your toes. So when you lay down, you're actually going to grip down like you're trying to dig those claws down into the floor. And all we're getting here is a sensation of being able to pick all the toes up together and then being able to drive them and grip them down into the floor as hard as we can. You see how our toes now aren't flat, they're actually curled in slightly because it's almost like we're trying to grip a bar. They're curling in so that they can press down harder into the floor, okay? Now what you're looking for that when you do this is that your little toe is still doing this, okay? If this one isn't moving, you need to spend considerably more time in barefoot practicing this, and then even just walking around and being barefoot, or at least in some kind of barefoot shoe for longer periods of time, so you can get that little toe worked back out further away from the others. Now the next step from this, so that we can start working on getting a wider base of support when we're lifting, is the ability to be able to spread the toes and then grip down. So what we're going to do here, we're just going to add one step in that. Now when Naomi picks her toes up off the floor, she's actively going to try and spread them as wide as she can before she lays them back down. And now you can see how the toes are actually more spread apart than they were in the first time. So relax, just relax. See how close in they are? Now when we lift up, she's going to spread them as wide as you can. And now you've got to try and keep them spread as you dig down. And now already the big toe and the little toe are further apart. And we've got a wider base of support up front here than we had when she was doing it the first time, okay? Now, this isn't too bad, but if you find that you're not really able to move the big toe or the little toe much on their own, which you should be able to do, basically the middle three toes are all going to be wired together. They're going to move together all the time. But your big toe and your little toe, you should be able to move pretty much independently. And if you can't, and they're kind of locked into the middle three toes, you're not going to be able to spread them as well as you could if you could get that skill back. So there's a couple of drills you can do to help with that, which we're going to do now. So Naomi's just going to come over to the bench here. And first we're going to look at what she can do to get her big toe moving independently better. So this base of the bench here, this could be anything. As long as it's stable and strong and basically not too high, we want to be able to press the bottom of the big toe into that surface now, so it is essentially locked in place. So now what we're going to do is move and do that same thing. So we're going to move the other toes up and spread them whilst the big toe is locked in position by the base of the bench. And the only reason we're doing this is basically we're just trying to break kind of the neural link, if you like, for want of a better term, between the big toe and the other toes, so that we kind of learn that they don't have to move together when we do this. So she's going to lift the other toes up, spread them as wide as she can, and then grip back down. Now the whole time she's doing this, she is still applying pressure here. She is still pushing the big toe into the bench to keep this activated, but we're just learning that when this is activated and this is pushing down, it doesn't have to be tied in and do the same thing that these toes are doing, okay? And then we can do the exact same thing with the little toe. So again, if we look now, she's going to do the exact same thing with the little toe here. She's going to press her little toe down into the base of the bench as hard as she can, so it's still activated and the body still thinks it's gripping down. But now she's going to raise and spread the other toes like that. So the other four are going to raise up, pull apart, and then grip down the whole time that this one is applying pressure. And basically what we want to do is practice this enough so that when we go back over here now, what you're looking for is that same drill that we were doing before when she was picking up and spreading. What we're looking for is, in terms of progression here, is that when you do that, you get the big toe and the little toe spreading out more, and we've got a wider base of support there. And once you've got that and a wider base of support, then you can really start rooting into the ground better and starting to get a feeling for really feeling rooted and how that's going to apply then to the bigger lifts that you do. So if we get her set up here, what we want to start to get a feel for now is, now that we're gripping the ground properly, or at least we're doing it better than we were before, we want to get a feel for we want to get a feeling for how it feels to be out of balance, and can our feet and ankles compensate for us being out of balance? Not because we want to be out of balance because when we lift, but just so that we can increase that neural connection to our feet and get a feeling for what it feels like to be in and out of balance. So very simply, all we're going to do here is have Naomi raise up her toes. And now when we root the feet, what I want you to think about is trying to imagine that you're trying to contract the arch of your foot, like you're trying to make it shorter. Just like you try to flex your bicep or your tricep or something like that. This is the arch of your foot. You're trying to do this. Now, you're not really going to get any movement from it, but what we're trying to do is create a muscular contraction in the arch of the foot so that we've got a better base to push against then down into the floor. So we're going to lift the toes up, try and contract the arch of the foot whilst the toes are up. We're then going to spread them and dig them down. And now this is going to stay the whole time now. She's going to be gripping down into the floor at all times. And all she's going to do to start is she's going to rock. She's going to go as far as she can. So her whole body is locked segments. Her knees are locked, hips are locked. The whole body moves together. She's going to rock forward as far as she can until she feels like she's going to lose pressure off the heel. So keep the heel down. And then she's just going to rock back and do the same thing. And she's going to go as far back as she can without losing the little toe and big toe pressure that we talked about earlier with the tripod foot, okay? And what we're looking for over time is that as she strengthens her foot and her ankle, she will progressively be able to get further forward and further back, and the feet will be able to compensate through that muscular contraction to keep her weight balanced, okay? Now, we're also gonna do the same side to side. She's gonna lock her knee and hip, and she's gonna go to the side, so everything moves together. And what we're looking for is as she goes this way, she's got to keep pressure on the outstep of her foot on the left side. So she's going to go as far as she can to the right until she feels like she's about to lose pressure off that little toe on the left foot, and then she'll come back. And then she's going to do the same the other way. She goes to her left, she's got to go as far as she can without losing pressure off the little toe on her right foot, okay? Now, once you get a grip for those, what we're going to do is just a little step up again. She's going to go forward. And again, the whole time, do not compensate by unlocking the knee or the hip joint. The whole body has to be one locked segment when you do this, okay? She's going to go as far forward as she can, and then she's going to try and basically draw a circle with her body. So she's going to go from that as furthest point forward that she can, go as far to one side, and then as far back as she can, and basically just draw a big circle with her whole body being locked in line, and go the other way. And again, all you're looking for as you're doing this is that feeling and that sensation of what are my feet and my ankles having to do to compensate for this movement, and how far can I get before I start to lose pressure of any of those three balance points on my foot, okay? There you go, and relax. Okay, and now if you want to be really mean and take this up just a notch, if you've got a training partner who will do this with you, if you just stand facing me, Naomi, okay? Have your training partner just get like a broomstick or anything like that. So if you want to add a bit of unpredictability to it and make it a bit harder, she's again going to root, so feet, toes are up, spread, and then grip down. And then with something like a broomstick or a dowel, all you're going to do is just put it close to her. And she's got to keep her knees and her hips locked, so the whole body has to move together. You can just move this around like so, and her only goal is keeping everything locked and feeling the balance shift through her feet in whatever direction that I put the pole that she has to avoid, okay? Now this one can just make it a little bit more fun if you're trying to do this with like a team of guys or a rugby team or something like that, and you're having a hard time convincing them that this stuff's kind of worth doing. You can turn this into a game in their warm-up, and all of a sudden they want to be doing it, and it gets a bit more interesting for them. And relax. Okay? Okay. So the goals of those are just to get you feeling what your feet are doing whilst you're moving around and whilst you're lifting, and just feeling for those balance points of those muscles working in the foot. Now, once you get a feeling for that and you're doing these drills reasonably well, the next step would actually be to do them with your eyes shut and get a feeling for it, because that's going to turn off the balance part of your balance that's based on your visual field. You take that out, it's going to get a lot harder. Once you can do them well with your eyes shut, then you can progress again. And probably my favorite one for teaching foot mechanics is this one. So we've got a reasonably light kettlebell here. Naomi's going to hold it in one arm. Okay, so let's say the working leg now is going to be her right leg. Okay, so what she's going to do, she's going to have this knee slightly bent, toes are going to be up and then spread and grip. So the whole time we're gripping hard. Her other leg is now going to come off the floor, so she's on one leg. Now this leg needs to be in front of the body with the knees locked, toes pointed up, because that means we're least likely to put it down to help us. And we need to make sure we are stood as tall as possible. As you go through this exercise and you start to get fatigued, what we don't want to see is this. All you're doing there is, as you fatigue, is you're dropping your center of gravity closer to the floor to make it easier. So push the top of your head to the ceiling. This is our start point. This is called a single leg weight swap. From this position now, she's very slowly going to pass the kettlebell from side to side. And I think she's using like an 8 kilo or 15-pound kettlebell here. That's more than enough for most people. And all we're looking for is what's going on down here. We're getting her to feel for all the little corrections that her ankle is having to make whilst the weight is swapping from side to side. Because what we're going to see is, as it goes to one side, the pressure is going to want to shift one way, and her big toe maybe has to press down harder to keep her centered, and then vice versa when it goes around the other way. Now, these need to be done as slow as possible and with the chest and posture as tall as possible. Let's do some on the other side. So again, now on the other leg, the knee is going to be slightly bent on the standing leg. The other leg comes out locked in front with the toes up, tall as we can. Keep the kettlebell nice and close to the body. We don't want to be passing it out really far in front. And what we're looking for is to keep the hip and the shoulders level whilst we're doing this, okay? Because that means we've stayed centered on that standing leg. This is also a really good one for like turning on and activating the glute med as well, because now the glute med is working really hard to keep that hip parallel to the floor whilst she's doing this, okay? And relax. So there you go. Give those a try for me, and until next time, I'll see you then.